Namaste, welcome to Arthaniti. It is very important that we are in the know of what is happening around us and how it affects the money that we save and our investment plans. There are so many things happening in the world, not only limited to the geography where we stay in, but all over the world that have an impact on the way we spend money, on the way we save money, and also on the way we should invest money. Having knowledge about these happenings is a must in today's times. Like, take for example, if someone would have told you at the beginning of this year that there is going to be a war which will break shortly, no one would have believed you, right? But on 24th February, when Russia invaded Ukraine and the war, which still has not stopped, has brought the world to an imminent food scarcity. Now, Ukraine is one of the biggest countries in Europe in terms of geographical area. It is the fifth largest exporter of wheat, second largest exporter of sunflower oil, and the largest exporter of corn to the world. It feeds, it fed rather, nearly 40 crore people from developing and underdeveloped countries. Now, with this war still going on, what has essentially happened is the eastern coast of Ukraine, which harbors the Black Sea, is essentially cut off. So the transport lines for all these agricultural produce are not in place. Russia is stopping all vessels from entering the Ukrainian ports. It is also targeting the farm equipments and produce, the agricultural produce in Ukraine. What this is going to do is it is predicted that nearly 4.5 crore people will not get food to eat, and nearly 32 crore people will have food which will not help them sustain. Now the situation is alarming. 40 crore people without food because of this ongoing war. Yeah, it is one of the factors. Climate change is another factor to add to the problem, correct? David Beasley, the World Food Program Director, in his recent address at the World Economic Forum at Davos, has reiterated this situation and how serious the threat is to humanity in the coming year if the war in Russia in Ukraine does not stop, right? Another factor, how is this going to affect India? We are in a way self-sufficient when it comes to agricultural produce, but we are very much dependent on other countries for our oil requirements, be it cooking oil or the fuels that we use in our cars and scooters, right? Ukraine was one of the major suppliers of sunflower oil to India. Well, that supply has stopped. Indonesia, which was the biggest supplier of palm oil, put a ban on the export of palm oil at the end of April. Right? India was the biggest exporter of palm oil in the world. Now, this ban obviously had an impact on the oil prices in the country, and the oil prices skyrocketed. Thankfully, Indonesia has lifted this ban with effect from 23rd May. So, some sigh of relief for India once the exports from Indonesia restart. Correct? But this has an impact on the way we save and the way we spend money. Correct? One other factor in recent times that has been in news is what is happening in China. We have seen videos on social media where people are locked up in their homes, and there is a lot of shouting going on where people are there is no food for people left in their houses, and they cannot go out of their houses because of the COVID lockdowns. Well, China has a zero COVID policy. So, in effect, because of this policy, what has happened is large cities like, say, Shanghai or Beijing have been in lockdown for more than 2 months now. The industrial activity, not only in these large cities but also smaller municipalities, is nearly to a standstill. Well, only 30% of the industries have been restarted, where the target is to achieve an 80% restart of industries in various areas of China. In his recent recent address, the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has urged his ministers to see to it that the industrial activity is restarted. Why? Because the employment figures have reached an alarming 18% for this quarter, and the IMF predictions of a 5.5% growth of the Chinese economy is far from being achievable. Now, how is this going to impact us? Well, China is the factory to the world with these severe lockdowns. Again, supply chains of products which are manufactured in China and which find their way to other parts of the world has nearly stopped. What is this again going to result in? Inflationary trends. Why? Because if there is a demand for products and if the supply is not in place, what is going to happen is prices are going to rise. Correct? So we have to brace ourselves for this. There is an opportunity here for India. Why? Because if China is under lockdown, people are going to look at other countries from where they can source their produce. Well, Apple has already announced its plans to shift majority of its manufacturing from China to countries like India and Vietnam. So a problem with China, good news for India, can be a good news for India, correct? Again, something that we should be aware about what is happening, right? One more thing that I want to tell you is about the US. Well, again, we know that US clocked in a negative GDP growth rate, and inflation in US as well as in Europe are so high that they have not been to such levels in nearly 4 decades, right? Add to it, US, most of the analysts in US are predicting that it is headed for a recession. Now, what is recession? Recession is generally a slowdown of the economy where sales by companies are not picking up, people are not having work, and generally the economic activity is on a downturn. Again, if the US is in a recession, how is it going to affect people outside of the US? Well, India has an export surplus with the US. So, what I'm trying to tell you here is what we export to the US is way higher than what we import from the US. So, if there is going to be a recession in the US, you can understand that it will have a negative impact on industries in India. Correct? Well, here are just a few examples that I wanted to quote, and why understanding what is going on around us and how it is going to affect us sitting in India is necessary. Why? Because it gives you a long term view, it helps you get a broader perspective of things, and try and find a way through what is going to happen, take advantage of some situations and brace for some situations, and find our way through this. Correct? I hope you have liked this video of mine. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and look out for the next video that I'll post. Thank you. Good night.